Hi, Chris McClune here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this newest episode of our podcast, Moving Water. As always, Andy Soccodato is here with me, as well as Bill Adkins. And what we're going to talk about this episode is FDIC 2026. Both Bill and Andy taught classrooms. They also taught a hot class this year, so we're going to find out how all of that went and take a look at some of the things that they may have seen at the show, if anything jumped out at them, even if it wasn't a water flow kind of thing. There's a lot going on at FDIC, so anything that jumped out. Andy, we talked about the quad that you had seen, so little things like that. But just to get us rolling, and this goes out to both of you. Your hot class. How did it go? We talked a lot about before leading up to this, what you were planning to do. Of course, usually the best laid plans don't always go exactly the way you wanted them to. But we talked about what you were planning to do. So how did it go? What did you guys actually do? And what was some of the feedback that you got from it? And I'm throwing it out to both of you, and you guys can just go back and forth and talk amongst yourselves.
Andy, go ahead.
Yeah. So overall, I think the hot class went fantastic. I couldn't be happier with how everything went and how everything turned out, and more importantly, the turnout. I think we counted around 130, 140 students over the 2 days. Rough math. So I was really, really, really happy about that. I know we had students from all over, obviously United States. We had some folks from Canada, had a student from Puerto Rico, a couple folks from Alaska, which was pretty cool, Maryland, New Jersey, all over the place. So it was really cool to see all that. But as far as, the logistics and how everything went, right, like you said, we had a plan on what we were going to do and how we were going to attack it. And Sunday during our setup, we decided to adjust things a little bit, but we covered all the skills that we wanted to cover. And I think we did the best that we could with the number of students that we had to make sure everybody got enough hands-on reps. So kind of what we geared the class towards, and what our goal was to show students how to safely and efficiently set up their dump site operations, how to safely and efficiently set up their fill site operations. And those two major components were kind of things that we prefaced to the class, that this is stuff that you can use on any rural fire that you go to. That's the intention. You can use this stuff on any rural fire that you go to. And then we did another station where we were maximizing our water from a draft. So we were trying to flow as much volume that we could from a single pumper. And we had a second pumper that was feeding water to a dump tank using some water reductors. And we were kind of the simulation there. And what we were trying to drive home to our students there was, okay, now in this station, this might not be something you're going to do on every rural fire. This is something that we're doing for a scenario where we're supplementing a municipal water supply system, where the hydrants fail, or we're flowing so much water that we need to start pulling water from nearby static sources to supplement. And how can we move that big volume in those environments? I think the coolest challenge that we had, and hopefully the students took away, was our water source was nowhere near us. Our pond was, depending on which station you were at, it was between 80 and 125 feet away from where we could safely park pumpers without, rutting the ground and doing stuff like that. So that's where at Bill's station, the students got to see the advantage of the vacuum tankers. They really shine there. At the other stations, we utilized water educting devices to pump the water from the giant pond that we had up to dump tanks for us to then utilize in our station. So there was a lot of moving parts. Students definitely got exposed to a lot. And overall, I'm really, really happy with how it went. Bill, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I could say Andy knows that we've talked multiple times before the class And even though we've taught classes throughout the country, we were both nervous about this one just because we weren't sure of the how the logistic was going to go. And we were nervous that I know I had nightmares that we came up that morning and no fire truck showed up, So but logistics from FDIC really came through, gave us everything we needed plus some. We actually had a few extra trucks that we didn't need, and the crews that came with those trucks were great. They worked really hard to help us out with what we needed as far as moving equipment, and it was really good time.
What would you say, and I'm always curious about this with any hot class that we run at FDIC. What was the skill set? Did you find that, a lot of the attendees were sort of, were not rookies, but, like had not done this sort of thing a lot. So there was a lot of learning. Was it mixed? Were there a lot of people there who kind of already had a good feel for what you were working on?
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I noticed I talked to some rookies through the day that was like their first time ever doing any really good hands-on other than the fire class that they attended, all the way to multiple chiefs. There was multiple chiefs in our classes. So there was a wide variety of experience in our classes.
Yeah, I agree. I think what one of the situations that kind of stood out to me was there were a couple people in class that specifically said, yeah, I've been an operator for a while, but I don't do any drafting. So I want to better myself. There was one student from Boulder, Colorado, who said that, that individual had worked there for several years as an operator. Everything was good. And that they are getting ready to incorporate some areas that do some rural water supply stuff. And she particularly said that, this is something that I need to better myself with and start brushing up on. So that's why I'm here. And that was really cool to see, an urban fire department, larger city fire department, sending two folks to learn how to, draft. So that was pretty cool.
Anything you would do different in terms of, like if you submit again this year and it gets accepted again, would you want like a different pond? Would you want to mix it up so it's not just, I guess, the same exact evolutions as last year? Mix it up a little bit. Anything you would change from it? Not from an instructor standpoint. Was there anything that you would want to I don't know, based on the feedback or based on the experience levels, you look at it, you go, we really need to spend more time on this next year. You might not even know because you don't really know who you're going to get and what the experience level will be. But sorry, it's my long way of over explaining the question. Anything you would have changed for next year if you do it again?
I think the location had its challenges, but I really love the challenges. So part of me hopes that if we get selected again, that they don't change the location, because I know that there were some students that were walking up to the stations when they got off the bus and they saw, well, the pond is 80 feet over there and all these trucks are on the road here. How the hell are we going to do anything over here? So I know that was really cool. That was really fun to kind of show them what is possible. The pond that we utilized, I'll be 100% honest, it was dirty, it was mucky, there was a lot of trash in it. So students, again, I'm not complaining about that, because students got to see firsthand some of the challenges that we have to deal with in the rural environment. Yes, I think if we had a more sterile, clean water source, drafting out of hydrant, putting hydrant water into dump tanks and drafting that way, we would probably be able to run more evolutions, but the students wouldn't see the troubleshooting that had to happen in real time. And I think there was some value in that. I can say that station-wise, originally we had a station where on the first session on Monday morning, we had a station where we were taking our water reductors and powering them directly into a pumper, whereas the other pumper at my station that was working in conjunction with my rig, they were powering the water reductors directly to a dump tank, and then we were drafting out of the dump tank. We decided at lunch to eliminate the rig that was using the water reductors straight to their pump intake because it was creating some issues rotation wise. The rig was operating at a really high RPM, so it was burning fuel a lot faster than the other trucks. So logistically, it was going to be problematic. And we just decided, you know what, we're going to remove that and focus more because of some of the experience that we had coming in. We found that some of the things that we took for granted as far as like experience level at a fill site, not everybody was on the same page. So we adjusted, and that station became more about how to fill and things that I think we all as instructors in our group kind of took for granted and figured a lot of people already knew. So we adjusted there, and I think moving forward next year, I think we would focus on what we turn that station into as opposed to trying to add anything. Bill, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you 100%. I will. That spot was perfect for us for what we were trying to get to the students to understand. It had 10 to 12 feet of lift, which is, that's not ideal. Like you said, 100 or so feet away. If it would have been a pond right next to the road, it wouldn't have been as effective for the students to see how you can get that water, because our class was based off of getting water from a distance, and that pond it turned out perfect.
Yeah, I think the only other big challenge that we had, and this was a legitimate challenge that we had to be aware of. The road that we were on was right next to the county's school bus depot. So 2 times a day, right, there were school buses coming in, and they had a route, and they knew their route. So
they stayed on their route.
They stayed on their route, which again, we're not complaining with logistics or anything.
Right.
What I really liked about it, it did challenge us, but it also showed the students, because a lot of times when we're doing rural water supply classes, we'll set up in a wide open parking lot and say, be mindful for tankers having to come in and keep a lane open. Well, we had to keep a lane open. So students they got to see, hey, yeah, that bus is a bus today, but it could be a tanker tomorrow. So, it really was helpful for students to see all the moving pieces and why we park like this, why we set up like this, why we do this, because we gotta conserve space. So I really love this, love the site. I really hope that if we get selected again, that's the first thing. I hope we get selected again, and 2, I hope they don't change the site, because I really liked all the challenges that we had to overcome, and I think it was beneficial for the students.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, what about the vacuum tanker? Was that your fire company's vacuum tanker? Okay, so how did that? Did you encounter people who had used vacuum tankers before? Was it a totally new concept to a lot of the group? How did that part go?
So for the vacuum tankers, that wasn't from my company. We don't have a vacuum tanker here, but I will say that FDIC did a great job of getting a second vacuum tanker. That I had called FireOvac to get a vacuum tanker, and they were willing to bring a tanker up, not realizing that FDIC was getting a tanker for us. So we actually had 2 vacuum tankers there, which turned out to be great because we were able to show a couple different techniques that they're able to use. But about 90% of the students had never seen or even heard of a vacuum tanker. And the other students that knew of a vacuum tanker, they knew about it in the oil industry, not necessarily the fire industry. The vacuum tankers worked out great. We were able to show a bunch of different techniques on using vacuum tankers. And we were able to show that even with air leaks, we're able to still get that volume from 100 plus feet away. We had one scenario where they were drafting at a 90 feet with known leaks. So we didn't tighten up the couplings on purpose so that we could see that we could get the volume. And then the other one was the shuttling. It was 72 feet with 10 foot of lift and just drafting, at 1,000 gallons a minute plus.
Excellent. That's I know you've brought that up a number of times. So that was kind of like that was your time to shine. That was your time. See, everybody, this is what I'm talking about. So, what about your classrooms? You did 2 classrooms. I think these are kind of your bread and butter classes, really, because I mean, you guys have both taught them before at the conference. I think both of your classes you had taught before. How did they go? Everything pretty smooth as usual. Any hiccups? Any interesting feedback or any interesting takeaways from those classroom sessions?
But so my class this year was almost completely full. There was only a few seats open. There were still people standing in the back of the class. I'm not sure if that was because they were wanting to stay awake or what, but the class really went really well. I did have some questions at the end from some students, and then it was at the end of the time, so a lot of students got to come out without hearing what my punchline at the end is basically making sure when you set up your rule water, that everyone is organized and knows what their job is before they get on the scene. So I didn't get to get that out at the end because of some other good questions, but other than that, the class went really great, and I appreciated everyone's from showing up.
How about you, Andy?
Classroom went great. Had a really good crowd. This is my 6th time presenting this presentation, and every year up until this one, there's stuff that I have to jump over just to stay on time, because that hour and 45, it goes fast when you're up in that classroom up front. I know other times, sometimes it's like when you're in the other side of it, it's like, man, an hour and 45, that's a lot of time to talk, right? But it goes fast when you're up front. So this year, I was really happy. I only had to skip over like one slide. So I felt like I had finally trimmed the presentation to get the most bang for my buck, hit the highlights, and not feel like I'm talking at 2,000 miles a minute, right? There are times where there have been other classes where I know it's just bam, 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 and I don't even give the opportunity to ask questions because I know that if we get down a really good rabbit hole, while it's good and we're answering questions and everything's good, I won't get to the rest of the presentation. So this year it was polished enough and good where we were able to cover everything, and we had some really good discussion during the class, and I was really happy with it.
Now, what about your own lessons learned? And I'm guessing, it probably, well, I mean, it could come from either side, either the classroom side or the hot side. And it doesn't have to be, lessons learned like a new way to overcome a challenge or something like that at a draft site or something like that. But more, I don't know. I mean, like, what are some of the lessons learned you learned about our rural firefighters or anything like, and what they're bringing to the table and what their challenges are and things like that? There's got to be a lot of discussion going on, and probably just from the questions that are asked, you can glean a number of lessons. So, Andy, I'll start with you on that one. What are some of the lessons you ended up learning from your students?
So I think some of the lessons that I learned from the students in particular were, there's a lot of ways to do stuff, right? And some of the students had been following our podcasts, have been reading our material that both Bill and I have published. And what was really cool was to hear some of them come up and be like, hey, I read your article, or I read Bill's article, and we went out and trained. And did you know that if you do it this way, like it's a little bit easier? Man, that makes sense, right? So it was really reassuring it was awesome to hear that not only are people reading the stuff and listening to the stuff that we're putting out there, but they're actually going out and using it and trying to perfect it even better, right? Which I couldn't ask for anything better than that, right? That warmed my heart. As an instructor, one of the things that I learned was the importance, and it reaffirmed the importance of being flexible. On Sunday, walking in, we had a plan. We thought that this was going to go exactly how it was, and we found out pretty quickly for a lot of different reasons, we had to be flexible and change things up. And the Chief Rhodes afterwards, he and I were talking at the instructor get together on Tuesday evening, and he said that the mark of a good instructor is your ability to pivot, and that really resonated. And I was really really proud of our group for being able to pivot and change things mid operation, mid lesson, and be able to do it without a hitch. So the guys made me really proud.
How about you, Bill? Any lessons from your students last week?
Yes. So for mine, mostly in the classroom, and the last 10 to 15 minutes of my class is open discussion. This is where I want to hear from others that what do you guys do that we didn't discuss today in this class, or go over in a hot class, and you'd be surprised at the people that have how they have the rigs set up for easy deployment. So as you know, with one of the things I do is I always like to set everything up for one person to be able to deploy something. Well, when you think you have everything figured out, you'll figure out that you don't know as nearly as much as you want. Even though I've been doing this for 10 or 15 years at FDIC, it's I'm always learning something new every time. And after class, a lot of students would come up and they want to talk to you and show you what they have. And there was a lot of sharing going on. Hey, send me that picture. I sent my, I always offer my my PowerPoint to anyone that wants it, because it's about sharing what we have. I'm not trying to hoard anything, and either are these students. They sent me a lot of pictures that I can use for future classes, and I learned some things on different rigs that I didn't know we could do.
I've been going to the fire truck training conference the past few years, and it's about fire truck maintenance. So it's all EVTs and fire truck mechanics and things like that. Don't worry, it is connected to the water flow stuff.
You're good. You're good.
But what I have found, I like to sit there and just listen, especially in the beginning of the sessions or at the lunch table, because it's amazing, just based on what you were just saying, Bill, and how. When you have those open type of discussions, it's amazing how many of our fire departments go through the same challenges. And it is also amazing to listen to those who have gone through the challenge, provide some of the solutions to the other, at the fire truck training conference, they're talking about repairs, like on this engine, I have this problem every time. And then some guy across the room was like, oh yeah, I used to have that. Here's what I did to address it. And it sounds like the same kind of thing was going on at the end of your class, where, there was all, there are rural water delivery issues everywhere. Challenges everywhere, and for every challenge there's probably at least one who's still experiencing the challenge and one who's already come up with a solution for it. So really, that's the great thing about those classes. I like those. I like the discussion sometimes a little more than the instruction, not to take away from what you guys are doing, of course, but the peer discussion is really critical to these things. So that's great to hear that went on. Now, we've been talking a bit about the education side of FDIC so far, but there is a whole expo going on, a massive trade show, 800 exhibitors inside, outside, in the Lucas Oil Stadium, in the hallways of the Indiana Convention Center. So I wanted to talk a little bit too, just about did anything strike you guys that you saw this year? That struck you as wow, that's kind of cool. I mean, Andy, like we said a minute ago, we were talking about that quad. I don't know if you're going to mention that at all. For those who haven't seen yet, Andy and Bill both did some videos for us, so they are on our YouTube channel, in the shorts section. So, or if they're not there yet, they will be soon. We have a cadence to releasing them, of course, but so you'll be able to see kind of what they're talking about a little bit here. But Bill, anything jump out at you at the show? Anything you were looking to see before you went and then got a chance to look at, or just anything new that you saw?
Yeah. So Lovell and Sims, we just ordered a quiller, a tiller with a pump. They call it the quiller, I guess. And so I was surprised to see that there was two of them there. Mm-hmm. They weren't from the same manufacturer that we ordered, but still is able to look at those tillers and see because we're still in the phase. They haven't started building it yet, so we can still make some changes. So it was nice to see those two tillers to see, what they put on those apparatus compared to what we've done with ours, and be able to make some changes if the committee decides they would like to do that. Another big change I liked at FDIC is I've been going to FDIC for 20 plus years now, and it seems like it had been I knew exactly where every booth was going to be, and it was the same every year, just a little bit different equipment. This year, it seemed like there was a lot of different changes in the layout of the floor, which made it more exciting to look at everything instead of just like, oh, I want to go over here and bypass all the other booths that normally wouldn't interest me, but it interests me this time because it was a different layout. I like that.
Andy?
Yeah, so the one thing that jumped out at me really quickly was that quad that you had mentioned, Chris. Because the whole quad concept is kind of near and dear to my heart because of the pumper that I own was originally built to be a quad for the fire department that I started as a volunteer. So back in the 80s, when my fire department built the engine that's behind me, they built it to be the ladder truck. So that truck was carrying all the equipment that it needed to be an engine company, but also had a bunch of ground ladders. And to see, a lot of engines are doing something similar to that now, but to actually see at FDIC, 30 years later, right, to see a new truck that is taking on that persona as a quad, even though, what is it really? It was a rescue pumper, a beautiful rescue pumper, but they were calling it a quad. That really resonated to me, and it piqued my interest. So I naturally had to go and say, well, they're going to call themselves a quad. Well, how many ground ladders are they really carrying? And I counted it up. They're carrying 119 feet of ground ladders. So that is great. Now I have to go back and refresh myself. But I know that the NFPA standard says that a quint only needs to carry about 85 foot of ground ladders. So, it's carrying more ground ladders than that. And I was really happy to see that. And it truly met the definition of what we would call a quad. And then the icing on the cake was that it was labeled Quad 11. And my engine is Engine 11. So it was almost meant to be. It felt like it was a message from somebody above, right? It was pretty cool to see.
I was going to say, were there any manufacturer represented? Because this was outside. Was there anyone there from the fire department who you talked to that told you why they went with that concept, or anybody from the manufacturer? Or
I walked, and my schedule was hectic, but I walked around a couple times, and I don't know if it just didn't align, but I couldn't find anybody there that could explain what they were doing. I do know that the truck was for sale. They were selling it there at the show for anybody that was interested. And I didn't catch from anybody what the exact reasons why they were selling the truck. But I know the rig had a 1,500 gallon per minute pump on it and 1,000 gallons of water. So it was set up to do a lot of stuff. It was a big truck. So the other thing that that selfishly jumped out at me was looking at the mid-mount platform over at the E1 booth. It was really cool to see that mid-mount platform, because where I work full-time at the Fire Academy, just a handful of days after FDIC, we took delivery of our new mid-mount platform from the same manufacturer. So for me, selfishly, it was a cool litmus test to go and look at that truck and say, okay, well, I know I put this on our tower. What did these guys do? How did they lay their truck out? Okay, all right, so they did one monitor as well. Yeah, okay, I did a monitor. There's electric. We did a manual. Okay, so it was a really cool litmus test to see, like, am I crazy for putting this stuff on this or doing it this way? So not necessarily water supply related, more aerial related. But yeah, it piqued my interest, and I definitely spent a lot of time over there.
Good deal. Well, I guess the I'll wrap up with just what do you guys have upcoming? Any general comments about FDIC, your class, what you saw, anything like that, or and what we are entering May here, so the summer's about to begin. What do you guys have upcoming?
For me, I just have a few different classes going on here in Ohio, and I still teach a lot of the departments in the area their monthly trainings. But one comment I do want to make, and I'm sure Andy he'll add to this, but we want to thank IDEX and Sam for all the help that they did in sponsoring our class, our hot class. And there was two gentlemen that worked in my station, Brian and Bryant, and I'm not sure their last name, but they worked for IDEX. But they helped with running that SAM truck and showed the students how to use the SAM. And I couldn't be happy enough to what all they did for our class.
Yeah. So, for the hot class, right? Like Bill said, we couldn't have done it without IDEX's help. And, all the fire departments that brought trucks, brought apparatus, fire evac for bringing the tankers, all of that. So thank you to everybody that brought apparatus and supported the class, and we're willing to help and reset and do everything for us. So that means a lot. I think personally, what was really cool at my station that I didn't mention before was, at my station, we were flowing, we had a 1750 gallon per minute pumper. The truck was 20 years old. And I told the students right off the bat, I said, all right, your goal for this scenario is to flow 2,000 gallons a minute out of it. And I know there a couple times people were like, this guy's crazy. There's no way we're going to do it. And we did it every single time for all the rotations that we had. And it was really cool to see. And it just goes to show, right, don't necessarily count out the old trucks. If you take care of them, right, they can, and you maintain them, they'll surprise you. They're meant to work, and they'll keep on trucking. But yeah, so it was an absolute honor to be at FDIC this year, to have that many people come through our hot class, the amount of people that came to both of our lecture classes. And it was really reassuring to see that people are starting to see what is possible with rural water supply operations, or water supply operations in general, and that water supply can be sexy, right? It's a little bit of work, but it can be sexy and it can be fun.
Yep.
Good deal. All right, guys. Well, again, my thanks to you both for sitting down. I'm glad FDIC worked out great for you. I'm looking forward to seeing. Hopefully, the class gets picked up again next year, and looking forward to seeing how. You're all there. There's going to be new stuff. You were using one of the new water reductors that we just started talking about this year, so I'm sure there will be some new things next year for you to try out as well. If there are topics that you'd like us to talk about on the Moving Water podcast, please let me know. I'm at chris.mcclune@clarionevents.com. Other than that, guys, thank you. Oh, and of course, our podcast, all the Moving Water podcasts are archived at www.fireapparatus.com/podcasts. But you can also find there every podcast we've done since we started. So again, guys, thank you very much for sitting down with me today. Have a good one, everyone, and stay safe. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.